Open up your forehead wide because it's V'ger, please. A hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
Oh, you're nothing clever? I was going to say I'm just a dirty space scavenging Borg cannibal, but
What I said, open your forehead up wide. I mean, come on. That's pretty clever.
we're deviating. You're being imperfect, Joe.
So you're telling me my intro just wasn't good enough to even register?
It's
Man, rough. We're off to a rough start.
Speaking of imperfect, season 7, episode 2, Imperfection.
Oh, man, Are you gonna tell me you didn't like this? Are you gonna do that to me? Because I love this episode. I still did. I really enjoyed rewatching it.
This is a good one.
Oh, thank God. I'm
this
relieved.
is certainly, you're watching 2 episodes when you watch this because you're seeing what they wanted you to see, and then you're seeing what they made you see in Picard. So there's a lot of cause and effect here.
True that you are looking at it entirely through a very unique lens, which is you were spoiled on this because of the worst possible thing. And maybe my firm affection for it is that I don't really I can put that out of my mind. Like I can just ignore that Picard ever happened and appreciate this episode for what it is. But I'm looking forward to discussing. Maybe we'll do this at the end of how Picard makes this whole thing feel, which is to say, not good, but
The implications.
the implications. Well, maybe we'll go through the whole Dennis, strategy while we're at it.
Before we get any deeper in this, I wanted to wish you a happy summer Steam sale. We're here on June 24th, day one of the old Steam summer sale, and I'm getting ready to pick some stuff up. We got some sales floating around, some other stuff, and I see the Starfleet bridge crew for the Oculus calling my name. So
hell yeah, man! I'm into it for $13 so far. Was my amuse bouche today on the Steam summer sale? I bought. I hadn't bought BattleTech. And so I'd always intended to pick it up, but it was like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, it's like $30. It's kind of short. I'll wait till it's on sale. It was like $10. I'm like, all right, now is the time.
now's the time.
And then I bought the enhanced edition of Baldur's Gate, which
the new one or the old one?
It's the Baldur's Gate 1, but the enhanced edition that they did maybe like 5 years ago, where they made it run a lot cleaner on modern computers. It's probably one of my all-time favorite games ever. It's the original Baldur's Gate using the advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules, second ed Dungeons and Dragons rules.
Yeah, THAC0.
With THAC0, yeah.
Yeesh.
Where you just sit there and keep rolling your ability scores until you get an 18 90 strength or better, and just face roll the entire first 3 chapters of the game.
What a great use of your life.
Hey, listen. So many memories came rushing back. Also, I'm pretty sure I still own my original Baldur's Gate instruction guide, which contained a whole in-universe explanation of the Baldur's Gate, like the Sword Coast area, as written by like Forgotten Realms characters in it.
That's pretty cool.
It was really like, people don't know that in the late 90s, early 2000s, the nerds that were making these games for like Microprose and Sierra and that sort of thing were super nerds. And so they made these tomes as instruction manuals that are just unparalleled to anything you might have encountered later, that served as almost like genre documents. Like the Starfleet Command game, the original Starfleet Command game, had a super long manual that listed like every like possible class and configuration of each kind of star cruiser that you could have for each
Super
empire.
Nintendo game booklet was pretty beefy on that. And to tie that into Voyager, we're looking at episodes now. This one's going to be October 11th, 2000. But the majority of the Voyager stuff that we've watched has gone kind of right through that golden age of PC gaming, when you'd buy this stuff and there, like you said, you're getting like hard spine books. Like I remember the TIE fighter stuff came with some really cool things,
Mm-hmm.
and just a lot of care and work. And it's funny to contrast that to a lot of these Voyager episodes where they cut so many corners, and it's like, man, you guys should be nerds. You should know about the stuff we're harping on here, and you're just letting so much fly and slide. So different ends of the spectrum on entertainment, I suppose.
So this episode starts with the departure that I guess you will mourn more than you anticipated, which is
Yeah,
most of the Borg children are leaving.
did not see that coming at all, especially with as much time, screen time, as they had been giving Manzati, right?
Yeah, Mazzotti.
Much to my chagrin, little Wildman wasn't in there, because if we're going to be sending kids off the ship, I would have loved for her to be at the front of the line, but instead we're getting rid of the good little girl. The twins were throwaways. I didn't care about the twins, but the girl, very, very surprising to see her off. Was that even her alien species that they like dumped her on? Because the twins seemed like they were different than her.
Yeah, so the people they found were the same species as the twins, but they just agreed to take a Mazzotti as well, just so that she could not be paid by the Voyager producers anymore. And it is a real shame, real missed opportunity. They could have had them all beam out, and then Naomi Wildman comes in, and it's like, okay, it's time for you to go too. And she gets on the transporter pad. It's like, oh, am I going to the ship? And Janeway says, nope, and then just beams her into space, and you see her body float out there next to Harry Kim's.
And then she could get picked up by the Necrons
Yeah, that's
from
right.
ashes to ashes, or she
Could
could
be
come
Lindsay
back.
Pollard's little sister now.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
many,
yeah,
so many opportunities missed.
big surprise that they offloaded her. I thought the new ship, for whatever the friendly alien species taking the kids off their hands, pretty neat looking design. It's kind of like a flying sea.
Yeah, it was one of those cool moments where they put a lot of time into something that's on screen for 10 seconds. They've done that a few times. And so there's a nice little farewell there, where particularly Mazzotti says goodbye to Icheb, who's staying, who we've established can't go home because his parents tried to send him back to the Borg. So he's got to stay on Voyager. And she says that I'll have difficulty adapting to your absence. And Icheb, who's obviously has more emotional maturity, says I'll miss you too. And uh,
Where's
Mazzotti,
Seven of Nine's crazy conspiracy theory, motherly instinct, and all of this? She refused to let Icheb go, but here she is just shooing these other three kids out the airlock. Like,
well, that's the episode we didn't see on screen, right? Like there was an entire episode about them having to go through this 7 of 9 Inquisition to prove that they weren't bioterrorists. But we've already seen that episode like once. They didn't feel like they had to show that to us. It would have been great if they had like panned over and it's like three of the other members of the race and they're all like beat up. Like they all got worked over in some sort of interrogation chair. Maybe they got sent down to engineering while 7 of 9 just went on another shooting rampage. That was like a test.
so they're saying their goodbyes, and Seven of Nine is a little too into the goodbye and ends up with a tear rolling down her cheek. But it's not there out of sweetness. It is some foreshadowing that there's problems on the horizon.
So they set up that she's having an emotional moment because all the kids hug her before they leave, and she's talking about deactivating their alcoves with Egypt, who's like, "Well, this seems a little too soon. Can we some time, get some distance?" And she seems disinterested, but Egypt points out that she's crying. When they come back to the episode, because that was the whole teaser, there you've got Seven in sick bay talking to the doctor, and the doctor's doing the usual. You just have an emotion, Seven. What's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with
It's
that.
just dreams. You're dreaming now.
Every time he says this,
Lots
he
of
is wrong.
misdiagnoses.
He
Yeah,
is
that's
terrible at diagnosing 7 of 9 accurately. But at least this time it gets cleaned up literally in the same scene because he goes and checks the computer and goes, "Oh wait, no, you right. Your shit's all broke. Sorry, I'll listen to you. This time." And that sets up really the entire episode, which is Seven of Nine's cortical node, which is established in this episode to be the regulator of all of the Borg implants that regulate her biological systems, is failing.
They use the cheap Hong Kong parts, not the good domestic stuff.
I don't know. Like, isn't the cheap parts now like Vietnam? Wouldn't Hong Kong parts actually be more expensive?
Well, we're talking about the early 2000s here too. It
Okay,
was a
fair.
different world. It's interesting that she's having this failure given that she seemed to be a higher ranked Borg that should have had better parts. But, this is the vehicle that we're going to tell the story with. So you've got two things going on. One is Seven of Nine body is falling apart, and two is Seven of Nine doing everything within her power to downplay it and try to hide it from the rest of the crew. She invokes some client patient confidentiality to forbid the doctor from bringing it to Janeway's attention. And off she goes about her merry way to slowly fall apart in other places in the ship.
The strength of this episode is combining a very real world impulse that people very much have when confronting terminal illness, which is to deny it, to try and hide it, and then to eventually struggle with accepting their fate. All of which, if you have ever endured these things on your own or had loved ones who had, it's not a far stretch to kind of see where they were going with this. And then, secondarily, the strength of Jerry Ryan in trying to portray someone who has still developing emotional capacity and how they are dealing with this process. And then, of course, we pivot near the end towards a solution that's much more specific to Seven of Nine as a character and their growth, and as well as Icheb. I know that the actor who plays Icheb is a persona non grata, but he does an excellent job in this episode. Extremely strong, particularly towards the end. He's been serviceable. He's been perfectly fine so far. Nothing he's done really has stood out. This stood out as a good performance on his part.
Which is impressive because his wardrobe of hip hop camouflage outfits is growing.
He is like
And
the least exciting member of Crisscross in his outfits. You know what I mean?
this is the spirit of season 1 and 2 living on, where you can't get civilian clothes that look okay. It's
Janeway had that one cool white pantsuit thing,
yeah, that was
and that
cool.
was it. That was the only good civilian clothes.
The later seasons of Voyager, there was a lot of good civilian clothes. Paris and Kim had an off-duty. It might have been when Janeway was playing the blue ball guitar. When
Yeah,
the secret, one of the many secret Nazi groups to come on the ship,
that was the
was
secret Nazi group that B'Elanna got in, like
Lana's Sexy Dreams.
brain
Yeah,
jacked. Yeah,
when they were burning.
with Senator Kelly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those look good. The later seasons, they started doing a good job making the civilian stuff look good. That's why I'm saying this is a throwback to the season 1, season 2, where just anything civilian was atrocious. Your B plot here is Icheb wants to get into Starfleet, which, as soon as you see him looking at the Starfleet Academy entrance exam, like, zips you right back forward into Picard, right?
Well, here's a good spot to start talking about that. This episode's emotional strength is essentially shattered by the first 2 minutes of one of the worst episodes of Picard. If for some reason you haven't watched Picard, don't listen for the next
Congratulations.
few minutes. And also never watch it. You've done well. Live that life, live that dream. But if you haven't watched Picard and you don't care to be spoiled, or you have watched it and you know what we're talking about, mid-season of Picard, when they reintroduce Seven of Nine, they do so through a flashback where Icheb, played by a different actor, is on a gurney being operated on / dismembered by an evil doctor who is looking for saleable Borg parts out of Icheb, and specifically is trying to find his cortical node to salvage but cannot find one. main plot point in this episode is that the reason he does not have one is because he gives it to Seven of Nine to allow his biology to instead reassert itself and regulate his Borg implants. Because he's younger, he emerged from his maturation chamber early, so he has more like bandwidth to be able to adjust to having a more normal biology than Seven of Nine, who, was well into her adulthood before she was deborged. Anyway, there's so much emotional strength in this episode, particularly in the bond between Seven and Icheb, right? Like that's the core of this episode is Icheb is really starting to connect with Starfleet, with the Starfleet ideal to help others, to sacrifice himself to do so if necessary, because that is the right thing to do. There is a fantastic monologue he delivers right at the end, because what happens is he just turns off his own cortical node to force the issue, to make everybody accept that he wants to do the Starfleet thing, which is put himself in danger to save someone else, in this case, Seven of Nine, and just lays it all out in front of everybody to say, you know, Captain, you can't tell me no because you do this shit to us every time you answer a fucking distress call. Literally what he says, right? And Seven, you keep telling me I have to stop relying on you. You need to start relying on all of us. Like you got to stop being such a bitch and learn that we all love you.
Dial down the bitch.
Yeah, we all care about you and we all want to help you. The doctor wanted to help you, turned him off. The captain wants to help you, push her away. I want to help you, you deny me the opportunity. Fuck that, I'm helping you and you have to accept it. And it's a great speech, it's a great moment. It shows how much Icheb wants to be embody the Starfleet ideal, how much he cares about Seven of Nine as a mentor, a parental figure,
a
friend, and when we next see Icheb after Voyager, he's getting disassembled and then gets mercy murdered by Seven of Nine. And that's it. That's the end of it.
And then they dress up.
And then they dress like a bunch of French pirates.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's why that moment was so gut-wrenching to me when I saw it, is because this episode happened and I knew what they were referencing, and I'm like, holy shit, where are they going with this? That's such a heavy thing. And then it's just to set up stakes. Seven of Nine, just so Seven of Nine can justifiably kill this lady later. That's
with
it.
2 guns.
Yeah.
The cool well, I don't know if it's cool. The interesting thing here is you've got 2 people coming from a shared past, children that were assimilated and have grown up in the collective. And on one hand, you have Icheb, who is doing all the things you just mentioned, wanting to get involved in Starfleet, to formalize his place within the crew, to take the entrance exam, to be a cadet, so on and so on. Then you've got Seven of Nine, who wants none of that. He even mentions to her, like, "Hey, you could get your commission too," and she's like, "No, I've had enough Starfleet." And I suppose it makes sense for her, like, why bother wearing the uniform when you get to stand on the bridge for free? Like.
Also, Ichib is obviously younger. He's supposed to be a teenager. He's being played by somebody in his early 20s, but younger, clearly, than Seven. And so he has a certain idealism and a certain still part of his personality that was unformed, and that's made it easier for him to adapt outside of the Borg, right? Like, which makes sense if you understand kids and how kids learn things and how easy it is for them to be molded as at early ages. The idea that, okay, Icheb's having an easier time turning into a person than Seven of Nine, who is much more set in her ways because she spent her adulthood in being a Borg. And so she's just kind of more over things, kind of more not idealistic, not really wanting to like be involved in something that would be service oriented, right? She's more interested in things that she likes, things that she wants to do, because
Not listening to rules, shooting guns indoors.
She wants to do her thing, whereas Icheb wants to be like, has more idealism to him because he's younger.
Mm-hmm.
That all tracks, and this episode portrays that difference in a way that makes a lot of sense. Also, it shows how far Icheb's come. Like, he's more clear-sighted in this episode than most of the quote-unquote adults, and they pay that off in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
Because he's able to, see the code, like he's not stuck in a lane when it comes to what, the doctor, the captain, and Seven of Nine herself ultimately represents.
Yeah, he is the wild card for this episode. Seven is denying how bad her situation is. She falls back to her regeneration alcove, gets in, and they're like, sorry, your plug doesn't fit anymore. And she's like, what do you mean? And they go, well, we're not using micro USB anymore. You're old and busted. And
USB-C or bust, get out.
yeah, get that USB mini out of here. Serial port, what are you talking about? She ends up in the mess hall, pulling an all-nighter, drinking, and I quote, protein extract. Glasses of protein extract, which look a lot like some very lewd.
You can just say milk. Like, you don't have to go there.
You ever wanted to see Seven of Nine drink 3 glasses of sperm? This is the episode for you.
Jesus.
1 Borg, 3 cups, all right?
There's your title. Boom. This is where Neelix enters the scene, and he actually gets used a little bit more than usual, which is to say, usually not at all
in
this episode. In the appropriate way, where he is the morale officer. Seven of Nine ends up passing out after drinking all of that sperm, and winds up back in, you started this. And winds up back in sickbay, and to cheer her up and to hang out with her, Neelix brings like a Cottiscott board and flowers, and is like, oh, we're gonna spruce up your area. I brought space checkers.
Classic Neelix. Oh, what? Someone's stuck in the hospital? Let me go burglar their home and see what I can't drag in here to spruce the place up with.
I guess when you're sleeping in the cargo bay, though. Like, sorry, Seven, I was going through the cargo bay to find something. I had to, I didn't want to bring your favorite gun. So
all I saw were phaser rifles and some roaches, some burned out joint roaches Joe Carey left behind before he died at some point.
He got 7 of 9 executed him after he got done counting all the rifles.
Yeah, well, it's a good send off.
He had that look of realization of like, didn't I hit on you in Space Dock?
Mm-hmm. That moment strikes. So now, this starts the sword of Damocles really swinging over her head. Janeway gets involved, and the cards kind of get laid out on the table that she's broken, and they're going to need to replace this part. And there's no point in trying to fix it. And if it was happened in the collective, they just swap the part out. So luckily enough for Voyager, not too long ago, they flew by some space debris of Borg wreckage. And when you really think about, well, I guess Scorpion Part 2, Kes was still with the crew, and then she bopped him forward 10 years after that. So I guess you wouldn't really see that much space debris of blown up cubes courtesy of species 8472, right? In this part of space anyways.
I mean, you could assume, I suppose, since they don't really give a reason why it got blown up, that it's a casualty of the Civil War. We did just see a Borg Civil War start, hypothetically,
listening to that episode and thinking about the opportunity that Janeway arguing with the Borg Queen as the Borg Queen just casually blew up spheres and cubes. Janeway got more Borg assets destroyed with a stubborn conversation than the Federation was able to accomplish in Wolf 359 and Sector 001 combined. That was 2 fucking cubes. And Janeway was able to... The scale of Voyager is just so fucking bonkers. And again, it just makes Janeway look so dumb. Like, just... I mean, how many more casualties could she have caused simply by going, nuh-uh, nuh-uh, nuh-uh?
So all the sudden desire to save Borg lives, like individual drone lives. I mean,
Awful.
we get another taste of that here because they go to the Borg debris field.
Well, hold on. Before they do that, they're getting ready to pop off, and we get our traditional Janeway Chakotay, like, you can't leave mommy unless you take a crew with you, and she ends up saddled with what, Paris and Tuvok, I think.
Yeah, Tom's like, I need to fly the ship for you, and Tuvok's like, I also want to apparently get schwacked by the Borg again. I'm super into it.
Hey,
I
yeah.
You decide. I don't know if he's like changed the passwords this time or not, but Jesus.
Right? Yes, yes. Like, hey, Benedict Arnold, how about you just chill out on the fucking bridge here for a second? What I wanted to call attention was Chakotay looking fit.
Yeah.
Like, Chakotay found a box full of leftover push-ups at Roxanne Dawson, didn't he?
Like, oh, these are only like 4 years old. Well, hold on. Oh, wait,
Uh-huh.
we're looking good.
Is he like trying to get another boxing episode? He's like, listen, guys, I promise I'll be in shape this time, all right?
Well, it's more like, oh, this show's coming to an end. I gotta go look good for my headshots for whatever comes after.
But yeah, man, Beltran looking fit. So they get back on the Delta Flyer, which they make mention, like, hey, the last time you flew the Delta Flyer, you got it blown up, but like no mention of, hey, we rebuilt the universe's best shuttlecraft again from the ground up.
So this is where the continuity error of this being aired out of order comes up. Literally, the next episode was supposed to be the second episode, not this one. And the
Hmm.
next episode is the one where they introduce having rebuilt the Delta Flyer.
Are the kids in any of those episodes? Because
No,
that
the
would be
kid,
fun.
and that's why I think they decided to air it out of order and not care because the kids don't appear in anything else. This was their last appearance, no matter what. So it's
Hmm.
really the Delta Flyer being in this episode that is the continuity error because they haven't technically rebuilt it yet. But whatever. We'll see that when we see that.
Um, so yeah, they beam over to a Borg cube, which does not. It's funny, the Borg cube that they get onto, that's just dilapidated and looks like total ass. Looks like better Borg interior shots than
Yeah,
the
because it's
unit
all fucked
complex.
up. It looks different. It doesn't look so samey.
Looks
It's
kind
like
of
a piece
cool.
of a Borg cube that has atmosphere still. They go over, and their plan is to harvest a cortical node out of an intact drone. And they find a possible donor, and that's when we see for the first time the combination practical digital effect that they fell in love with in this episode, which is apparently the cortical node comes out of a little hidey hole that's in your forehead. So you see Janeway go through the whole process of cutting the skin off, peeling that off, and
Putting it in
then
the box, very
it
carefully keeping that for her collection of Borg skin, like Gold Member.
and then like using a little tool to get the little green thing to pop out of the forehead. It's actually well done. It's a digital effect with a practical piece. Um, Worked out super well given that it's 2000 era CGI. Also, props to the space fight that's about to happen. I thought
Yes,
that was dope as hell.
yes,
Because what happens is a bunch of unknown aliens that looked a little Kazon esque
yes.
show up and are like, "These are our Borg that we want to salvage." And Janeway's like, "I will kill you with a plasma torch."
Listen, if it's good enough for Jonas to try and kill Neelix with, it's good enough for you, space junker. I love these guys. I love the concept of scavengers going after Borg wreckage, like talk, more fucking Picard parallels. Those Borg tech's valuable, and it's just laying around. Again, Next Gen left me under the impression that when uh, drones die, they disintegrate, or maybe they were just getting beamed off by the cube back on the ship. But I would say at this point, Voyager's pretty firmly established that Borg stuff can break down and it's still able to be scavenged. But I love it. They show up. There's no real introduction to what they are. Just like, hey, this is ours. And as you put it, Janeway has no time for diplomacy. It's right into a fucking headlock, a a screwdriver to the neck, uh, Tuvok starts shooting from the fucking hip, dropping fools, and then there's this long, awkward pause where he waits for someone else to shoot him back. Luckily, these space pirates don't have kill settings on their phasers, or his ass would be gone.
They have this neat moment where Janeway like covers the briefcase that's got the thing they came for as they get beamed out by Tom, and the guy's like trying to shoot her in the head with the gun just as she gets beamed out. It's all well put together and on the cube. It's a good scene, good
Yep.
sequence. And then you get back to the Delta Flyer where they have the space dog fight. Really good CG, very well done, all new shots, looks fantastic. It's basically a TIE fighter versus an X-wing, and Tom's there like piloting the ship with his joysticks, and he's like barking orders at the captain, like get your tactical, and he's just shoot these guys.
I know that Tuvok's over there bleeding out because he just got blasted, but you need to get on the guns.
And then Janeway says yes sir to Tom, like half sarcastically. It's actually pretty funny.
Well, look, Tuvok's clearly unconscious, so they can let their bedroom talk come out in public. This is a safe space now.
Yeah.
As stupid as Voyager looked fighting the tactical cube, flying around and swooping around, like the Delta Flyer actually looks pretty tight, zipping around Borg wreckage, fighting with space pirates. Like cool stuff that should be happening all the time. Yet, unfortunately for Voyager, is pretty rare. So yeah, I was right with you. The fight on the cube, good, and then the dog fight outside of it, even better.
Yeah. They get the goods back to Voyager and start to assess getting the thing into 7 of 9. You get a whole scene where they're trying to do the operation. And again, we see the same shot of the forehead opening up to put it in.
Yes,
And
a practical effect so nice they had to use it 6 times. They need to show you this practical effect like all of these actors need a hole in their head.
I will say that there was probably more in-close shots of this effect than there were shots of Jerry Ryan's ass in this episode, and that is quite a feat. When you're in love with something more than that, because the very famously we have pointed out that the Voyager cinematographers shoot everything close except when Jerry Ryan's on screen, and then suddenly they're shooting wide. They
I
are
don't know.
in love with doing that.
Let's talk about that real quick. I don't feel like I've really had that clubbed over my head recently. I don't know if I've just become desensitized to it or if they've legit chilled out. I think
It's that you're desensitized to it because Stevie was watched a couple of scenes of her recently and is like, "Yep, there she is, all of her glory." We've seen it so many times, we're not picking up on it anymore.
I feel like the camera used to be like right in on her boobs, like nipple level all the time, and I'll have to start paying attention moving forward. I kind of felt like we subtly grew away from that gratuitous angle.
No,
I don't know.
they really
I will have
didn't.
to research and watch more pictures.
Yeah,
of
you'll have to
Jerry Ryan's
really
boobs.
closely, very closely to detect if they're
I'll go back
still
to that mess
pandering.
hall scene again of her drinking her protein extracts.
There you go.
We get a cool little.
That's your fetish.
Probably a good chunk of the internet's. Seven's being real stank about the position she's in, and Neelix, when he shows up with this space checkerboard, which we've established she likes playing, it's like, hey, let's take your mind off of work and kind of chill out while we wait for the away team to get back with the cannibalized Borg goods. And she's like, no. And then we get this cute little scene with the doctor where he's like, Neelix, you can't take her on in her weakened state. You'll trounce her. And like totally just baits her into this this pride fueled match of space chess or whatever.
I mean, we know that works on 7. That's how Tom got her on the ping pong team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when the Captain Braxton adventure, the time adventure was going to break out, it was it's fine, Torres didn't think you were very good anyway. Like,
good call out, Joe. I forgot about that. Away team shows back up. They've got the scavenged Borg doodad, and we pick up into a scene where we've got the captain and Tom and the doctor performing the surgery.
Yeah, it's where we were in our conversation before we got distracted by talking about Jerry Ryan's ass. Anyway, it's revealed to be a simulation they're doing on the holodeck, and it's not working. She keeps dying every time they try to put this thing in, and they come to the conclusion that unless it's super fresh out of a drone, it's not good. Can't use a dead drone's cortical node. It will not work. Has to be fresh off the vine. Which Janeway's like, oh, let me go murder another drone real quick. I'll just cap him right in the Tuvix Memorial corner. Where that's where we do our deeds here. It's where we do our executions, and then we'll just yank that bad boy out. And the doctor's like, that's terrible. Like, please don't.
I listen, Jamie, you got to pick a side. Either you're okay with Rando Borg dying, or you're not. Uh, EMH, either you're okay with mass genociding people, or you're not. People keep switching sides here, and I don't know what truth to believe. Like, this, I believe, is the correct portrayal of Janeway, where the Borg are just mindless zombies, and yeah, if you got to kill one to get some go juice for your buddy, do it. But and why wouldn't you? I mean, you've clowned the Borg time and time again. There's no reason not to believe you can't just.
Just send Tom with a phaser rifle, stick him up,
Mhm.
like he's the outlaw Josie Wales, and roll out. That's good.
I before they established that it was Interview with a Vampire, you can't drink old blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
I figured, well, maybe these Borg are actually made by Sony and everything's proprietary in there, and you can't just move pieces in between them because you're gonna have
Oh no, it's an iPhone.
to. Oh, you can't use the AC adapter from that Sony model on the other one. That's a big barrel. You need the small. So now they're in a real pickle, right? For whatever reason, they avoid the fact of just going and hunting down some wayward Borg to. Man, if only we still had the Bajoran Starfleet former quartet
she
member.
she'd have been long dead by now, though.
Listen, we're doing stuff out of order, all right? I just saw that the Delta Flyer was back, and with no mention of making time has no meaning in Voyager. She could have just been off in some cryostasis chamber waiting for a good episode to exit on, and she could have been the one to offer up her cortical stimulator as a dying wish. But instead, that honor is going to fall to Icheb, who is finally made aware of what's going on with 7 and 9 when Janeway's about to zip off on the Delta Flyer and goes, hey, listen, kid, before I fly off, you should know mommy is super sick with the space cancer and probably going to die, but we're going to go scavenge this old cube. Like, I thought her leaving him behind was real stupid. Like, if you've got a Borg expert or a former Borg, like, why not bring him out and endanger him in what could have been a hilarious fight with some space pirates?
I completely understand not taking him with on the retrieval, but like not having him part of the, like, let's try and make this thing work. Why don't we talk to the next best person when it comes to understanding Borg physiology? Then 7 of 9, the Doctor, and then Icheb, literally in that order. That part I disagree with, considering obviously that in the background, apparently Icheb is in fact that kind of genius and works out his own solution, as we already discussed, which is, oh, take mine. I'm young enough that I'll just live if you just help me with a little gene therapy to make my body reassert itself. I'll be okay. Um, but
He
that's
starts
that's the point.
talking
They gotta
about
they gotta they gotta set him up to school everybody, which I get, and that actually pays off so well. I don't mind the inconsistency in not including him.
he starts pushing this genetic resequencing agenda, and I'm like, man, like father, like son, doing Crowley proud over here with you talk genetic wonder drugs. Um, the options laid out on the table very curiously omitted the one which was, and would have just been gunned down, and maybe they should have put it in there anyways, just for Seven to kind of show her growth, but reintegrate her with the collective, right? Die on the med bay table, or go back to the collective where you can be reassimilated and repaired and live. but no mention of that whatsoever.
I think it's correct not to go back to that well, though. Like, yes, they didn't bring it up. It seems inconsistent with the last time we've had this exact question, but maybe that's the point. Like, we had that question, choice was made. Why go back over that question again? You know, like, we've established that being assimilated is worse than dying, so you would choose death,
Sure.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I get that, and that's part of the discussion that Seven has. Like, she gets finally to the I have to come to terms with my condition, right? I have to come to terms that I have a terminal illness, and I'm going to start to cope with that by turning the doctor off, and I'm going to go someplace else. I don't want to fucking deal with being in sick bay.
And if
She
there's
go,
one place to go, the happiest place on Voyager.
gotta go to the engine core, man. She leaves her gat behind and she goes to the Memorial Jonas death walkway to.
Slash Tom Balana dry hump loft.
It's true, where they got caught by Vorik, if I recall.
Tuvok.
No, it was Tuvok. And
Okay.
they have a cool moment where Balana's like, they're all trying to look for you. Don't worry, I'm not going to snitch. Like, I also hate the doctors. Like,
I made him watch his daughter die.
we all have our ways of getting back at him. And, they've had a rivalry. We meme on it because of the frequent workplace violence, but
When she shows up to like work and actually do productive non-active shooter things, does she have to walk into engineering with her hands up?
like, guys, it's all right.
I come in peace. I love this scene. It's been a long time since we've seen a chill, cool, casual B'Elanna that isn't saddled with Tom Paris being dead weight in a scene. And knowing Seven's feeling very vulnerable here, and previously it had always been B'Elanna who's saddled with a terminal illness. Many, as she even points out in this, many times, it's been her up on the operating table with some big heavy rubber puppet stuck to her face trying to kill her, forcing her to be operated on by evil holograms and whatnot against her will, which stands in a very stark contrast. Jane over there, I can't make Seven do something she doesn't want. Since when? Like, you forced B'Elanna through like 3 non-consensual surgeries. Why can't you steal the? I don't even. I'm trying to come up with something funny to call this corticals. What are those little 6-hour energy drinks?
I mean, is this like a Bang energy drink?
I like to keep my Red Bulls in my forehead for easy consumption.
I agree that there are some inconsistencies in the continuity from the perspective that the captain has proven in the past she's willing to overwrite people's medical wishes. I guess this is specifically endangering another person, right? Like, telling B'Elanna she has to accept a surgery that was developed by a war criminal is a little different than I'm going to make Seven accept endangering Icheb's life. That's a different. That's where saying, like, if you say no, I'm okay with that, makes way more sense than B'Elanna just kind of being weird about, well, Space Mangala came up with this, or and she's like, no, I'd rather die. Like, really? He's not actually here.
let's tie it into another B'Elanna on the deathbed scenario, which was Barge of the Dead. And that ties into this scene for multiple reasons as well. It was another situation where B'Elanna wanted to do something that the captain was forbidding, although in that instance she was able to plead her case because she had to go to the definitive Ronald Moore confirmation of afterlife to save her mother from a dishonorable afterlife, right?
Correct. Yes. Ron Moore is the opposite of
Subtle.
whoever wrote the afterlife episode for Neelix, who was greeted only by uncertainty and depression.
And very scary images of what the hell was his sister's name? It wasn't Talaxia. Elixia? Elixia. Let's think Alexa, but it was, yeah. She had a little sharp needle teeth. Female Talaxians are terrifying.
Nasty, yeah.
Nasty things. But in that one, I would say Bolana got some pretty solid, or had a pretty solid belief that yes, Tovacor and anti-Tovacor are real places. Yet, when asked about the afterlife concerns, Bolana seems a little unsure, confirming that she has gone back into her character loop beginning yet again.
Yeah, like
Uh,
I am literally the only person on this ship who has actually visited their culture's afterlife and can verify it is true.
yeah.
Like, come on.
I don't know. I was also thinking, like, why does she have to go to Tovacor? Why couldn't she go to heaven? Some
Funny you
how
bring that up. That was
how dare
actually, let's just say it's come up in Trek before. Like, which afterlife do you go to?
if you have any just a little bit of anything other than human, you do not get to go to heaven. Heaven is very exclusive to
Yeah,
humans
very
only.
racist. Very racist.
Saint Peter is a piece of shit.
I'm sorry. Do I sense 1/16th Klingon? Get the fuck out of here. Get on
Sorry.
your goddamn Viking rowboat, whatever the fuck they're doing over there.
Oh, Barge of the Dead, you piece of shit. But we also have a revisit to the idea of what's Borg afterlife. And I forget what episode they brought it in previously, but like, yeah, drones might die, but they're still on the network and their memories are never forgotten. And in that, we live forever. I think it was one of the early 7 of 9 episodes, because that was one of the things that was kind of tripping her up initially, was that certainty of existence had been taken away from her, and it was another kind of stumbling block on her Rumspringer that was to end in individuality.
There's also a scene when she is in astrometrics and is uh, looking over like Earth geography as she contemplates the idea, like, I'm not gonna make it to Earth, you know. So I'm kind of looking at pictures of it wistfully. Captain comes in, pulls up a picture of Bloomington, Indiana.
Which is not a windswept, barren snow wasteland for once.
Which it is like 11 months out of the year. Like it I don't know what it is about Bloomington, Indiana, that it is a desperate tundra, way more than the climate would suggest, but it's just kind of it's engineered to be terrible. If we have any fans in Bloomington, Indiana, I'm sorry, you should move. There is a so I
The
got a funny.
idea that she's looking at pictures is so preposterous to me. Like, you've got a holodeck. You could be there living in these things. Like,
Yeah, you could be literally walking the Grand Canyon right now. The, there's a scene here where they start talking about the deaths that Janeway has decided to accept, quote unquote, as part of the price of going home. An interesting thought, right? Like, Janeway decided to not stop at the first M class planet, as she notes, and decided to try and get home. And she's doing it in a bragging way to saying, we're getting close. Like, we're getting there. We're making this happen. And then Seven's quick counter is, and that has cost you. And you have accepted that cost, and pulls up a casualty list. She actually rolls off a couple names, which are casualties we've seen on screen. So Ensign Kaplan was the ensign who died in Unity, the Borg cooperative episode, who we actually
went
liked
out
her.
like a boss.
Yeah, like we liked her character, and we're like, oh, this poor red shirt's gonna die, but I like her. And then she just got immediately in the
It's like
episode.
that hobo flamethrower.
And then Lindsay Ballard, the Harry's Canadian girlfriend, gets a shout out here as someone who died in the service of duty. The rest of the names on the list are all references to the West Wing. So if you look at the list, it's Commander J. Bartlett, Lieutenant Commander L. McGarry, Lieutenant Commander T. Ziegler. These, Toby Ziegler, Leo McGarry, Jeb Bartlett. These are all characters from the West Wing. I remember seeing that because I loved the West Wing. I was in college at this point, or I was almost in college. I was watching the West Wing. I thought that show was great, and looking at the fact that all of the names on this list are copied from an Easter egg of another show. And it was such a weird fourth wall break. It was like the first time I noticed an Easter egg like that in a TV show.
Fuck that shit, man. I don't watch West Wing. Where's my Hogan? Where's my
Yeah,
lawn suitor? All right. Where's the
yeah.
names I care about? Who else we
What?
got in there?
Why? Yeah, there's only the two names that are mentioned in dialogue are correct. There's Timothy Lang is one is listed, who is a name of someone who we've seen but we did not see die on camera.
Is
But
this
yeah,
Chakotay's old mining friend that he got in a
it
lot
was
of
some
fistfights
extra.
with?
It was some background extra that like just
What about the
apparently
guy that
died at some point.
Ensign Bullcut who fell into the spider mouth down on Volcano Dinosaur Island with Neelix and Hogan?
It, this instead of doing a stupid West Wing joke, this should have actually been the list of the people we've seen die. It wouldn't have been hard to do either. Like we've got names for most of them. Invent names for the others. What the
Put Nick
fuck?
Locarno on there too, man. Why
Yeah,
stop there?
like why put Sam Seaborn on there? Like Rob Lowe doesn't need your help.
Nice to see Ballard get a little bit more mileage for someone who was theoretically supposed to be so important.
I was more proud of the fact Kaplan was on there. Probably our favorite like extra who got aced aside from Fred Durst.
Yeah, Durst.
Yeah.
It's funny that there's been so few deaths actually on Voyager, and again, I think they should have killed more people. They should have had more people come up along the way, but this kind of shakes Janeway, and I always enjoy the scenes where it's Seven and Janeway, and Seven starts popping her mouth off and knocks Janeway down a few smug rungs.
While this is going on, we've had different scenes of Icheb pleading his case with different people about the treatment he's developed. First with Seven of Nine, then with the Doctor, and then after this scene, Astrometrics is when there's the implied scene where it's explained to the captain by the Doctor with Icheb present to say, this could work. We could actually save her life. This has a really good chance. And Seven of Nine just flatly refuses because she clearly does not want to put Icheb in danger. And that's when Icheb does the rebellious teenage thing of, well, I know better, so let me go ahead and just make this work the way I want to. And turns his own cortical node off using the alcove and forces the situation and lays his great speech out where he makes Seven of Nine accept the help that he's given. And it's a great moment. It's a fantastic, emotional, and perfectly Trek kind of thing where we have this character who we've become slowly accustomed to and acquainted with, who's adopting the ideal, who's decided, I want to take this risk to save your life, and you're not going to stop me from doing it. And the surgery works. They get to do the shot two more times, and you got Tom helping with the surgeries.
It's okay.
He's
Someone else can fly the ship, right? You got to get your
yeah,
best nurse in there.
and of course it works. And we end where we started in the teaser, where Seven is extremely relieved that Icheb has survived, with a smile on her face of pride at the young man that Icheb has become. But Icheb's concerned because she's crying again. This time it's because she's legitimately having an emotional moment, and it's a good note to leave the episode on.
Yeah, this is a hard one to talk about because there's not a lot of funny low budget points. It's a well crafted Voyager episode. It's a solid script. The acting's all good. The stakes are more intense for different reasons. Like obviously they weren't ever going to kill off Seven of Nine, but the groundwork they lay here creates very real repercussions down the line because of the series that will not be named. And yeah, the whole thing comes off smooth. So very nice start so far to the non
The afterbirth of season sucks was what we were left with last week. This is the first kind of fresh
fresh
taste
start.
that we get out of season 7, and it's good. And taking Picard out of the equation for a second, because I think you have to on a certain level. This is a great episode of Voyager because it tells a story about the characters we've gotten to know, and it allows them to grow and to evolve and to demonstrate how far they've come, and do it in a very Trek way that plays to the two strengths that I think Trek storytelling has, which is create a story you can identify with by having a very real problem that isn't like too remote, right? Like too science fictiony, like dealing
It's
with terminal
accessible to
illness. Yeah, it's
everybody.
yeah, exactly, accessible. Terminal illness story, very accessible. And then you do the Trek stuff on top of it to make it interesting. And then, like you said, you spent some money, you got some good effects, you had some good space dogfighting, everyone did well with their performances. This is an altogether well-crafted episode, and it is only weighed down by the implication of what came after.
I see. I'm sad to see the other Borg kids go, but I see now why they did it. This episode is about graduating Icheb from the children's table and making him part of the main crew now, right?
Right.
And that's Janeway even says it as much that today he just became an adult, and with him getting these Starfleet aspirations, like I can see them starting to mainline Icheb into main plot lines, and you're not gonna have to worry about the younger children Borg kind of saddling him back in this kid capacity. They've kicked him out of the nest, right?
I mean, it makes perfect sense for them to decide to do this rather than have. You can only tell the kids being cared for stories so many times, right? Like they kind of hit that, I think, enough to make the point that they wanted to make, and instead they wanted to utilize the angle that they started to develop specifically here. And yeah, they do a good job of doing that. And then, we get, I think we end up with more Icheb in this season than we did in season 6 overall. I think there might be like 6 more episodes with him in it in this season.
Hey, you might
Aside
give
from this,
Neelix a run for the money then.
it's true. And he yeah, they take this in a different direction, and I also really enjoy it.
Cool. Moving on, we are going to be going into season 7, episode 3, Drive. We got Janeway, and I don't know who else it is, but then you got Tom and B'Elanna in some very fetching brand new uniforms. With Janeway's approval, Paris enters the Delta Flyer into an interspecies light speed shuttle race held as a peace celebration.
Those uniforms are actually kind of one of those, like,
Why didn't they use it more?
yeah, like they made this uniform as like these flight suits for this episode, and you're like, these are fucking cool. Why are these never used? What's wrong with you?
If you're not going to use those again, why not just bust out the fucking trash bags from Alice and put them in that?
Gross. We will see everyone next week when we review Drive. See ya.